Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make an excuse straight away. I'm not feeling great. Jesus, I have a wicked dose of constipation. Not wanting to reveal it to all of you, but it's a fact. I didn't pass the stool in 3.5 weeks. I'm under wicked pressure right now. I took a syrup of figs about an hour ago. The only you could do it now, it says the sheet of plastic. Well, I tell you, after 3.5 weeks, I went into Dr. Welch's in Ross yesterday. Oh Jesus, the pain, I couldn't stick it. And I went into Dr. Burke anyway, and he had one look at me. And he says, I have the yoke for you. He says, I can cure you. He says, and when can I show you? I still have it. What again? A tablet. I said to him, Jesus, Dr. Buck, I know you know your stuff, but I never swallow that. Oh no, he says. That's a suppository, he says. You place it in the back passage, he says. And you leave it there overnight, he says. And you should be grand. I come home a small bit confused. There's no back passage in our house. But we do have a utility room. Oh yeah, we're with it like. And I says, this tablet is not going to know whether it's in a back passage or a utility room. So I put it on the saucer and left it overnight in the utility room. And Jesus, quite disappointed, woke up in the morning and not one bit better. Awful disappointed. To be quite honest with you, for all the good it done, I might as well have shoved it up me ass. Well, just tell you a quick one. Last July we were out on holidays in Portugal. Staying in an apartment with 2 utility rooms. But Jesus, the last night I kind of overdone it. I thought I was going to go easy because we had an early flight at 18.5 pints of San Miguel. And I would have finished the last pint only there was a kind of a cockroach in the bottom. But anyway, I got to the airport, an early morning flight, and Jesus, I was awful shook. Sat in on the plane anyway, 3.5 hours of a flight. I said, I had the opposite kind of a problem as I had at the moment. It was in free flow. But Jesus, I was there anyway, and I sat in on the plane, and Christ, lo by look, I was sitting beside the greatest bollocks I ever met in my entire life. Oh jeez, he sat down, he was a dub of course. But anyway, that's what he was saying. But he sat down beside me, and he says, do you know who I am? And I says, I don't, boss. He says, I'm a member of Mensa. And I said, well, I was in SIP2 for 6 months. No, he says, Mensa is for people who have a high IQ, he says. I done the leaving in 92, he says. I had the best leaving in Ireland. I'm just a genius, he says. And I'm an IT specialist, he says. And he says, there's nothing I don't know. And I said, oh Jesus, I said to myself, this is some dose now for 3 minutes. And he says, what's your IQ? And I says, Jesus, I never measured it, I said. And he says, well, I tell you, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. He says, I'd say you're normal IQ, even though you look a bit dopey. Jesus, this fellow was an arrogant hoover. But he says, that's grand. He says, I tell you, he says, there's nothing I don't know. I told you that. He says, I've an IQ 10 times better than normal, he says. So he says, we'll have a quiz, he says. And he says, I'll give you 10 to 1. He says, every question, he says, I get wrong, I'll give you €50. And every question you get wrong, you only have to give me a £5. So just to shut him up, I says, fair enough, boss, go ahead. So the first thing he asked me was, how far is dirt from the moon? So I didn't say a word, I handed him a £5. And he says, there's 3,844 mile and an 8.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, he was dead. So I says, right, it's your turn. And I says, fair enough, boss. I says, what goes up a hill with 4 legs and comes down the far side with 3 legs? He says, I know everything. He says, there's a logical answer to this. And he took out a sheet of paper and he started walking out. He drew a hill. And he drew 4 legs on one side and 3 legs on the other. But I was fairly shook and I fell asleep. I woke up coming into Dublin anyway. Just the plane was just touching down, and when I woke up, the tie was gone to one side. Jeez, he was under pressure, he was sweating. He had cocks of paper rolled up, trying to walk through this. And he says, I know, there must be an answer. So the plane touched down anyway, and he says, I'm behind it. And he handed me €50. And I got up, I was taking out the bank. And he says, hold on, he says, give me the answer. He says, you can't let me like this. So he said nothing, I just handed him another £5. Thanks very much.